Okay, so hey, welcome Girl Scouts. I'm glad everybody is here. I'm sorry we're online and not in person at Camp Farnsworth, but I'm really hoping I have an image of Camp Farnsworth behind me so we can feel all Girl Scouty and everything together. I'm Gail Clanchesser. I own a small business called Coastal CPR and First Aid located here on the New Hampshire Seacoast. Where I teach CPR and first aid and a variety, wilderness first aid and a bunch of other really fun courses. I'm also a troop leader for Troop 12387, and this year we are going to be a cadet senior troop. So today's workshop I was asked to do is kind of a spin-off of a series that I did this spring and summer for our council. I did a series of Facebook Live events on different first aid topics for the different first aid badges throughout the different levels. And I will, in a few minutes, probably post, before we're done, in the comments, I'm actually going to post a link to my website. And actually, I can do that actually right now while I'm talking to you. I could do that. I actually recorded, I copied the Facebook Live recordings, and I'm going to post it there right now. So anybody can go back and watch those later. Each of those workshops had a handout. So the handouts are also all linked there as well. So if you want to follow up a little bit further, the information's there. So today's topic is what's in your first aid kit. And so I am sitting here with a variety of first aid kits spread out on the table in front of me. You know, your first aid kit can be anything. Oh, the background, I guess I have to hold it really close or the virtual background takes it away. Some first aid kits might look like this. This is actually a teeny tiny little one that, oh wow, it's kind of funny how it does that, which is what I keep actually in the little bag. I shouldn't say a little, it's a pretty big, decent sized bag of all the paperwork and things that I take to every troop meeting. This is what lives in that bag because it's small and it fits. First aid kits can be a sandwich baggie, just full of various little things. Some can be fancy. This is a little one that I have. So what do I have in my first aid kit? And if you've got any questions, by the way, go through. Feel free to post them in the chat, or if you have, especially if you have your camera off, feel free to post them in the chat. So this is the first aid kit that I actually keep in my hiking bag. This is the one. On the outside of it, I have a CPR barrier device clipped to the outside. And what I have in mine is, to start off with, I have non-latex gloves. Because if I'm dealing with any kind of bodily fluids, I want to be wearing gloves while I'm doing that. I keep them right on top because it's actually one of the first things that I want to grab just in case. But it's also good if I'm doing anything that's really grubby or dirty and I just want to protect my hands. I have gloves. I have, oh my gosh, I'm going to grab them, they're all loose. I have a fistful of Band-Aids. They're all different shapes and sizes. I have knuckle Band-Aids, fingertip Band-Aids, big Band-Aids. I do have some, where are they in here? I do have some little ones. It's kind of a big jumble. I don't have them like individually in a little baggie because while organizing things in baggies I am a fan of, sometimes I just want to grab something quick and not have to take all the baggies out to get to the one thing that I need. So they're all kind of loose in there. Oh, this is going to sound weird. I have a plastic bag. It's from something that I bought. It's a zipper bag, and that sounds weird. Why does she have an old plastic bag in there? This is for trash. Could be first aid trash, could be food wrapper trash. We try not to leave any trash behind when we're outside doing things, whether I'm hiking or at the beach, or I'm just like sitting in my car waiting for a kid outside of something, which, you know, we all spend quality time doing. I could put any first aid waste or any trash in here, seal it up, carry it out with me so I'm not littering, I'm not leaving a mess behind. I especially don't want to be leaving a mess behind if it's first aid waste, anything that touched a bodily fluid. Oh, look, more Band-Aids. Oh, it's even giant Band-Aids. So I have a lot of Band-Aids in here. I actually carry two of these because I really like them. I have triangular bandages. I actually have two of them. And a lot of times we think of a triangular bandage, we think of using these to make splints. You can make a sling out of it. I can use this to make a tourniquet. I can use this to hold bandages on there. There's a lot of different things that I can do with a triangular bandage. And I like products that have more than one use. My first aid kit. Oh, I do have, of course, gauze, sterile gauze, individually wrapped. And I have roller gauze, also individually wrapped, because this way it's clean. I have, oh, more Band-Aids, more gauze. There's a lot. It's all falling on the floor now. I have a lot in this little zipper pouch. I have an emergency blanket. These are also known as Mylar blankets. Sometimes they're called survival wrap, Mayday blankets. It really depends on the brand, depends on what they call it. We use this primarily for treating shock. If we think someone is going into shock, we're going to cover them up with a blanket. And if you don't have a Mylar blanket, any kind of blanket, hoodies, extra clothing, anything will work for that. I like this though because this looks ridiculously small. I mean, it's like literally the size of my hand behind it. It's very, very thin. When I unfold this blanket is 4.5 feet wide by 7 feet long. It is huge. And I think it's something that whenever you do outdoor adventures, if you're hiking, you take your girls on a quick trip, everybody should have one of these in their day pack, even if you are just doing a local trail for 30 minutes and you're never leaving the park. I think everyone should have one of these because every summer we hear some story about somebody who got lost on a day hike in one of our beautiful state parks and they end up spending the night in the state park. And how we dress to go hiking at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon in September is not the way you would be dressed to be out at 2 o'clock in the morning in September. It gets cooler at night. And that's even true in July and August. You can stay warm in these. They're also really crinkly and noisy and highly reflective, which I think makes you easier to find if you get lost, if you're wrapped up in a Mylar blanket. And in a pinch, I could probably use it for other first aid things. Okay, because I'm not a fan of ticks. I have both tweezers and a tick spoon. So I have 2 different ways to remove ticks in my bag. Okay. With tweezers, I literally just grab, I'm gonna try to pinch my skin and I can't even pinch my own skin today. This is terrible. I guess it just means I'm really well hydrated right now if I can't pinch my own skin with this. But I would pinch the tick and pull it up gently till it comes out. With the tick spoon, it's got a little, I don't know if you can see this, it's got a little notch in there and you basically scoop the tick out. There's also a new one on the market, came out like a year or 2 ago called the Tick Key. It's on the idea of a tick spoon. I don't have a tick key, but it's metal. You put it on your skin so the tick is in the center of the skin and then you slide it. It's got a beveled edge and it scoops the tick out. And by the way, those are really the only 3 approved methods for removing a tick. A lot of you may have heard of other ways to remove ticks using different products to put on the tick. And while yes, they will make a tick back out, the tick will typically vomit its stomach contents into your skin as it backs out, which really increases our risk for tick-borne illness. I love your facial expressions. I said that. I love that. So it's something we definitely do not want to have happen. So tweezers, tick spoon, tick key, those are really the approved methods, the safest methods for removing a tick. And then lastly, I have a pocket knife in here because this one's got a couple different features to it. I carry a pocket knife just because you never know when you might need a knife. It might just be I need something to cut my apple so I can share it with my kids. I might need it because I need to cut up a bandage. I might need to cut someone's pants open to get to a wound. I carry a pocket knife. Okay. So this is my hiking first aid kit. Everything fits in this one cute little pouch. I used to use like a quart-sized Ziploc bag, and then I got this nicer bag. Just because now if I'm out with my kids and I say, grab the first aid kit, it's really well labeled what the heck it is. Now, there are other things that you might carry in your first aid kit, depending on your troop. And just really quickly, if people want to just like throw in the chat, what age level is your troop? I'm curious. What age level girls are we working with here? So people just want to type that in the chat really, really quick. So we've got Daisy Brownie, so your multi-level troop. That's always fun doing multi-level because we're trying to combine activities so everybody is excited about what they're doing. We've got junior cadet, Daisy, junior through ambassador. That, that's a challenging, it's such a wide group, and their levels of maturity are kind of in a wide range as well. So that's definitely a challenge. Cadet, senior, multi-level, Daisy to junior, Brownie, junior, Daisy. So we've got a mix of everything in here. So for older girls, you may want to be adding things into your first aid kits like a maxi pad or a tampon or something like that, because those are things that you might need. And if you're thinking, oh, we're just junior, throw it in there, because different girls hit puberty at different times. And if this happens on a troop trip, you want to be prepared for it. And you might not have stuff in your own purse available at that particular time. So it's always kind of good to have in there. So other things, that's not in my camping one, but the other thing that I carry in my troop bag right now, because I'm sure we all have a troop bag with all our paperwork and forms, is I carry a gallon. I know my virtual background keeps glitching out when I hold things out there, but I have a giant gallon-sized Ziploc bag. And in this Ziploc bag, I have a printout. I'll turn around so you don't see names on it. I have a printout from Volunteer Toolkit of everybody in my troop. So I have like a troop list of all of my girls. And you can even, I believe, print off their parent contact information. And then I have in here sealed envelopes. And actually, I tend to reuse, sometimes I reuse cookie envelopes if I have some left over. So I have a checklist on the front of everybody to make sure I've checked off that I keep track of. In this folder, I have, in the Ziploc bag, I have all of my, the way these are folded, you can see their names. So I've got to hold them backwards. I have my annual permission slips. This is actually last year's because I haven't collected them for this year yet. I have the annual permission slips for all of my girls. So I have all that in there. And then I have in there the sealed envelopes. This is all of their health history forms. So, and this is a tip I got from a leader years ago when I first started as a leader. I'm on round 2. My older girls are in college, and I'm now doing round 2 with my youngest, who's in middle school. And she said, put everything in a Ziploc baggie, because what if it gets wet? And I thought, I'm the kind of person who would drop important paperwork in a puddle. So I keep everything in a Ziploc bag. And I get great tips from other leaders, whether it's at meetings, leader events, Farnsworth Weekend, or fun stuff like that. So any questions so far? You guys have just been a really cool, quiet, mellow group. Other things you might put in your first aid kit, or special situations for your first aid kit. If you have older girls, if they have to carry any medications or anything on a trip, they're older. They're middle school, high school, they should be carrying that themselves. So if they have an asthma inhaler, an EpiPen, a medication they have to take, then you would, they would carry that. If you have Daisy's, Brownies, Juniors, I was trying to say that all as one word, and that obviously was unsuccessful, you may be carrying that stuff. So what I recommend is the parent has to give you any medications they take. It needs to be in the prescription bottle. So if your troop will be doing trips and that parent will be coming, I usually suggest to them that when they refill a prescription, keep the old bottle, because it's got her name, the dosing, all that information's on there, and they can put in the older bottle just what you need for that specific trip. That way you're not carrying 30 days worth of a med when you only need one. Okay, that just keeps it safe, but it has to be in the original packaging so we can keep it straight. You cannot have a parent give you a baggie with a pill in it, because what if 2 parents give you 2 baggies with 2 green pills? Whose pill is whose? Is one round, one's hexagon shaped? I'm not a pharmacist. I can't tell the difference on that stuff. If you're going to be carrying things like epinephrine pens, and this is just 3 different kinds. There's a new brand that's come out in the market, so, and I don't have a trainer for it, but we should be somewhat familiar with the EpiPen. There's also like an AviQ. This is a generic. I'm trying to hold this so that it doesn't glitch out on my virtual background. You know, these things do need to stay somewhat cool. They can't get hot. So you might want to end up making sure that I've got these in just like this is a thermal bag. I can throw a cold pack in there. I've also got, an asthma inhaler trainer in here. You might want to end up carrying a small cooler to put that kind of stuff in. So someone asked, do you have links to things to buy for our kits? I don't, but I can put one up on the website that I listed above. And there was a handout I made for this, and I'm not trying to remember. I think the handout had a few links on there, and I'm actually just going to jump over to my email really quick, and because I don't remember how I sent out the list, and I'm trying to find the link with the handout, which I don't see right now, but I will find it and I will link it. I did put a link for my website, so I will put the link to, I believe I sent you a list of things to put in your first aid kit as a handout when you register for this, but I will double check that. I made it as a two-sided document so you can print it out on cardstock, and one side had a list for your first aid kit. The other side, I copied all of the phone numbers. Someone's holding it up. Yes, and I color-coded it because I'm a geek and I like things color-coded. I also put on the back the contact information that you would find on the crisis communication form. And I believe I made it so it should print like not a full page, so that you could, and if you double-side it, they should line up. Then you can cut it out and it should be able to fit it in your first aid kit, so you have it with you. It's got like the number for poison control on it, which is 1-800-222-1222. But honestly, I'll probably call 911 before I call that, because 911 will connect me, and they'll probably also send me an ambulance, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Someone didn't get that document. It will be posted with the video. It should be posted with the video. And actually, I just realized it is actually posted on the registration page that you registered on. The handout was right there. So if you go back to the Girl Scouts of the Green and White Mountains webpage, and I usually just go straight to that search box on the top right corner, type in volunteer enrichment. And then in the search box, it's usually the first one that comes up. And then you'll see the list of all the workshops they've got planned. The handout is actually linked right there. So actually, I don't think it was in the email when we registered. It is a separate link there. Someone's going, yes, it is. I see a giant thumbs up. And actually, Dee Dee has posted it right in the chat for us. Thank you, Dee Dee. That was like super, super helpful. I mentioned at the very, very beginning, I know a few folks joined us a few minutes after we started. I have a link at the top of the chat. This is being recorded, and this recording will be posted on the council website. I'm actually also going to post it on my website. I have a website just for workshops I've done for Girl Scouts, and any handouts that I have done are all posted on there as well. Today's presentation really is a mix of some workshops that I did for the girls over the summer. And what we kind of covered today, and what you can do with your troops too, is a lot of this is covered in our first aid badges as well. Because for brownies and juniors, they have to make a first aid kit. They have to make their own. Cadets have to learn all the different things in their first aid kit and how you would use those things. So I covered those this summer. Is there any other questions? Because, can you get an EpiPen inhaler without a prescription for emergencies? And the answer is no. Unfortunately, you cannot, because they are prescribed medications. So an epinephrine pen is by prescription only for that person. They have to have a medical diagnosis to get an epinephrine pen. Now, you've probably seen epinephrine pens maybe at your school that the school nurse has. They have a different standing order prescription to have an epinephrine pen on hand for a student emergency that doesn't have a prescription for one. That's something different. But all these medications, there's legal controls over making sure they're used safely. Inhalers are really, really specific because there's a number of different medications that are in inhalers. And some people are allergic to some meds, or some kids might have built up a tolerance if they use a certain med a lot. So we would never give a student somebody else, especially with inhalers. You cannot give somebody else's inhaler. You cannot give a girl another girl's epinephrine pen. And I use the terms generically just because, they might have an ABQ. They might have a different brand. And these all work a little different. I kind of like these. They're a little cheaper than the EpiPen. They talk to you and tell you how they work, which is kind of neat. And then there's, the generics, which work like an EpiPen, but they have 2 safety caps, one on each end. You have to remove both. The orange end, of course, is where the needle would be. So I'm going to stick that back in its little thing. These are trainers. These aren't real ones. Let's see. Any questions? Can I show a fun first aid kit I made with my girls? Absolutely, you can show us a fun first aid kit you made with your girls. I think that's great.
So this is made out of a pot holder. They sew on a button, and then the little handle holds the button. And inside, you sew in some plastic baggies, sew some so they go each way, and then they can put their stuff inside. So this one has Band-Aids, wet wipe, sanitizing wipe, more Band-Aids, but they usually bring them in at the beginning of the year and we refill them with some supplies. And we made these probably 4 years ago, and my daughter was able to get hers for me. She knew right where it was. It was in her bag that she takes when we go on, short Girl Scout things. So a fun one to make with the girls.
Oh, I love it. It's great. And it's the perfect size that if she's going to school right now, I know everybody's school district is doing something completely different, but if she's going to school, it'll fit in her backpack.
Yeah. My girls always bring them on, they'll have them with them when we do different things. So it's nice, convenient, quick, but it's fun for them to make and easy.
Yeah, and actually, I think you've got a lot of fans of that. So, if you think of it and you have time, feel free to shoot me an email with the steps on how to do that. I'll send it over to, or send it to customer care and just put in the subject line, girl made first aid kit or something.
Yeah, I'm sure I can find some directions. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think it's a great resource to share with other troops. And I love ideas like that, because when people think of first aid kits, and I actually I couldn't find this morning the standard plastic white box. We always think of that white box first aid kit, and I couldn't find mine this morning. And I know I own one, but it's somewhere in this basement. And I literally went through, dug out this one. This is the one in my car. But the first aid kits can be anything. It doesn't have to be the official plastic box that we buy in the store. It can be whatever you need it to be. And depending on what your troop does and the age level of your troop, what you put in there is different. I have a ton of Band-Aids in there because, that's mostly for my kids, because we seem to go through a lot of Band-Aids right now. And that's come in handy on hikes when all of a sudden somebody's got a blister because their shoe rubbed wrong. Other troops might find they don't need as many Band-Aids, but they need, finger splints or something, or I don't know. One thing I don't have in my first aid kit, I don't know if anyone caught that. I don't have antibiotic ointment in my first aid kit. And a lot of first aid kits come with antibiotic ointment. Personally, we do use it at home. I don't carry it, especially in my troop first aid kit, because some people are allergic to the ingredients in antibiotic ointment. Some kids have medication allergies. So if you don't have a health history form that confirms that someone doesn't have an allergy, you can't give them antibiotic ointment. Just because we don't want to treat a boo-boo and then have an allergic reaction crop up. And there's just so many allergies out there. So Dee Dee's going to get a list out. She'll send the supply out. Red duct tape on a plastic Ziploc baggie. Absolutely. totally works. And by the way, I love the idea of things like hers, her pot holder one, everything was in like Ziploc style bags. That's great because if you're trying to do first aid and you're outdoors and it's raining, all your Band-Aids aren't going to get soaked because she's got them in little Ziploc style bags. That's perfect. Can Kim's Homemade Kit be made and sold as a money earner? You know, I don't know. That's something I'm not sure where council is. I mean, theoretically you could, yes. I'm not sure if it was a Girl Scout fundraiser, how that falls under the fundraising rules. So that would be something to probably check with the actual council on to find out if you could do that. Is, you know, are we selling a product versus selling a service? Like I know they have specific rules on fundraising and what we can do. Yeah, other people have kept funny Band-Aids, fluorescent cartoons. It was amazing how much could distract a crying kid with a skin knee. Maybe because my kids are older, they don't care as much what's on their Band-Aid, but you know, getting fun. There's all these, if you can't find them locally, there's a bunch of great websites that you can find fun Band-Aids. I found a website once that sold Band-Aids that looked like strips of bacon. And no, they had like cartoon characters, but they had like bacon. They had fruit. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. I'm trying to remember. It might have been like First Aid Mart or something like that. I'll have to find it and like post it on my website. Yeah, someone else carries a plastic card for removing bee stingers. And actually, that's a good thing. So we didn't talk about that because I wasn't really thinking of it as a separate first aid item, but that's actually a really good point. So a lot of times when people get stung by a bee, the stinger, you know, wasps, hornets, other stinging insects do not leave a stinger behind, but bees do. And there's a right and wrong way to remove a bee stinger. And in your first aid class, because most of us have taken a first aid class, or I'm just going to go to the assumption that you've all taken first aid, because I think everybody should, of course, that in the videos, you know, the character always like whips out a credit card, scrapes that bee stinger right off. And I thought, I can't pull a card out of my wallet that fast. But yes, you could certainly have a plastic card that's in there. Honestly, I might even just use the edge of my phone case. I might use that. I might use, you know, if I have a card in there, I might use that. I might use the edge of a piece of paper. You can use the dull side of a knife. You can use the edge of plasticware. But yeah, having something in there in your first aid kit for that, especially if you know you're in an area that's really popular with all the bees. That's a good thing to carry with you, especially if you've got someone who's allergic, because we need to get that stinger out quickly. Now, the reason we scrape it off, if you don't remember this from your first aid course, is the stinger has a venom sac in it. And if you use tweezers or you grab it to pinch it to pull it out, you will actually inject more venom into their skin, which could make the reaction worse. And it's going to make it hurt a lot more. And these things, you know, aren't comfortable. Another thing that wasn't in my hiking first aid kit, just because mine is a soft bag and things get mushed in there, is I don't have like an ice pack in there. I was just realizing that because that's in my little troop one. I do have a mini ice pack in here because where this lives in my troop bag, it's not going to get squished. In my backpack, everything gets squished. And I don't know if you've ever accidentally squished an ice pack inside your bag. It makes a mess after a while, especially if you squish it hard enough that it leaks. It does make quite the mess. But I do have one in my troop bag. Now, if you are outdoors, you can use an ice pack for a variety of things. You know, any kind of a sprain, strain, bug bite. If you are near a building, if your troop is meeting, I don't know, say I have my troop meeting outside in my yard. Just kind of trying to think someplace quick and close. And we're outside and somebody trips over something in my yard and I need an ice pack. I'm actually probably going to run the house and get a sandwich baggie and put ice cubes and water in it, because that's colder than the actual ice pack is, and it will work a lot better. Now, whether you use a baggie with water and ice or use an ice pack, you want to make sure you don't put that plastic bag directly on their skin. You want to put like a cloth in between. If it was my arm and I had a long sleeve shirt, I could put it on top of my shirt, but I don't want to put that cold plastic bag directly on their skin. Any other first aid kit questions? Or does anyone have any questions that have to do with the first aid badges and different things that we might want to do for a first aid badge, or need questions or need help with? Everyone's kind of mellow here. So if everybody is, if you're like good, you can always just give me a thumbs up, although not everyone has their video on. I love all the people who are outside. That's really cool seeing all the trees behind you. If I was really organized, I would have done this out in my yard, but that didn't happen. You get to laugh at me. Because if there's no other questions, I think we'll just kind of wrap up. Because that's kind of what's in our first aid kit. Actually, I'll probably throw a couple little quick reminders as you start your troop year. Even, I know some troops are meeting just remotely to start. You're not meeting in person. As you start to plan for your in-person meetings, make sure you probably email out to your families the links, or download and send them the documents for them to fill out their permission slip for when you do start meeting. And make sure that you collect your health history forms from them. Those need to be done annually. You can't just say, I know a lot of families will say, oh, can't you just use last year's? Nothing has changed. No, you have to do a new one every single year, because sometimes something has changed but it was like 6 months ago and they don't remember. When you get the health history forms, do sit down and look through them. Make sure they're filled out completely. I mean, they're not terribly complicated, but make sure they're filled out completely. If the parent writes something on there that you don't understand, or if they put down that they've got a kid taking a med that you have no idea what it is, touch base with the parent. You don't have to be like super nosy or anything. Just say, hey, I noticed you put this on your daughter's form. Is this anything I need to be worried or concerned about at a troop meeting or when we go on a trip? That way they'll let you know. They might be like, oh no, it's just something for at home. It won't impact a troop meeting. And that's fine, because you don't have to know like every single personal thing about every single girl, but you do want to check these because, if you've been a leader for a while, I'm sure I'm not the only leader who got blindsided at like the first overnight when someone shows up and hands me a baggie full of pills that I wasn't expecting. And I know I'm not the only leader, and it's going to happen to others at some point. But if we're really proactive up front about collecting all of our paperwork early in the Girl Scout year, then we're not chasing parents down when we finally do start meeting indoors and we do start doing field trips. And maybe we start planning camping and troop trips. We're not all of a sudden trying to plan something and chase families down for paperwork. So make sure you review them. They go into a sealed envelope, and of course, I'm trying to find one of mine, and I know my daughter's is. Actually, my daughter's is in another envelope because we did something with another troop, and I put it in a different bag when we went to do something with another troop this summer. I was going to hold the envelope with their name on it because I don't want to hold up an envelope with somebody else's name on it. But they all go individually into sealed envelopes. This way, they're all confidential. And again, I have a checklist on the outside of an envelope of who I've collected health history forms from, who I've collected their permission slips from, and everything is in there. And then I stick everything in a Ziploc style bag. And let's see. Yeah, I'm a new first year. I'm looking, that's kind of get your year started kind of paperwork. If you're going to be doing like fall products, if you have a booth sale, and especially when we move to cookies, you do have to have someone who's trained in CPR and first aid. So you could check with council. I know I'm located in the Seacoast, but not everybody is located here on the Seacoast. So you do need to find a class either nearby. I am working on some stuff with council for a new remote training setup. It does involve us meeting remotely. It does involve me mailing equipment so you can practice the actual real skills. It's not 100% online, because would you really know how to use an EpiPen if you've never ever practiced with a real one? Or I'm sorry, shouldn't say real one, practice with a training one. We're not going to practice with the real ones. So those are other things that as you start planning out the start of your year, you'll need to do that. So somebody posted they're new. This is their first year as a leader. Oh my gosh, awesome. I think that's great. You're doing our Brownie Way. Oh, Girl Scout Ways is like one of my favorite badges like ever. sounds silly. That's actually the first one we do every time we bridge. That's our first one because we learn how to become. How do we become a brownie? How do we become a junior? What's involved in being a cadet? Oh, I just found like my daughter's envelope. I finally found it. It was in the pile. And they're doing the first aid badge. So any fun or extra tips are helpful. So for brownie first aid, tips that are helpful are you can always combine this with, well, pre-pandemic, we would combine this with a trip or a tour of like the fire station. So right now it's a pandemic. So I don't know if fire departments are going to be allowing trips over there. Or if they do, it might just be outside. You might not be allowed inside the building. And part of that is because they have to follow very strict protocols because we are in a pandemic. But you can always ask somebody if they might come meet your troop outdoors and kind of talk about how to contact 911. Because for brownies, they need to find out how to get help from 911. Talk to somebody who treats injured people, and you may have a parent in your troop who's a healthcare provider, and they can certainly help you out with that. So talk about what they do. They get to make their own first aid kit, and we saw Kimberly's great example of one that she made with her troop. I've done the Ziploc baggy ones. I've bought the cute little boxes. There's a bunch of different ways that you can make one. And the handout, Dee Dee linked the link to the handout of what could be in your first aid kit in the chat. It's also linked on the volunteer enrichment series where you registered. It's also linked there on that webpage on the Girl Scout Council page. Learning how to treat minor injuries. This is a fun one. You can do this with your volunteer who's going to help you talk about how they treat people, but this is where they can practice putting on Band-Aids. You can buy gauze and they can practice wrapping themselves up in gauze. It's like super fun. Now, in days, I keep saying pre-pandemic because there's ways we used to do things and there's ways that we're doing things now. And if, I have a bunch of like posts up on my website about all the health and safety updates that I've made because I'm teaching CPR and first aid in the middle of a pandemic. So what I'm doing now in my first aid classes is, if you've taken first aid, you might remember we would partner up and we'd practice bandaging each other's wrists or lower arms. Now I'm having my class participants bandage themselves. So they pretend to have a boo-boo like on their leg, like around their knee or their ankle, someplace easy. And they actually have to practice bandaging themselves. So that's something you can actually, a lot of this now you can actually do if you're meeting remotely. And then learning how to prevent and treat outdoor injuries. We can talk about how, this is a great safety. How do we be safe before we go for a hike? How do we be safe when we're on the playground? What are things that we should be looking out for to keep themselves safe? So those are kind of fun. I think making a first aid kit is like super fun because they get to personalize it. Whether you use a baggie, a pot holder, a plastic box, they can put stickers on it, they can color it, they can really, really, really make it their own. So someone else posted, oh yes, Pinterest is totally your friend, although I could be on it for hours, so I don't go on it as much as I used to, because I'm not sure I'm not the only one who says Pinterest is, there's so much on there. But yeah, you can use medication bottles. She's like little boxes like candy containers. If you have any parents in the medical field, you can use them. If you have older girls, absolutely, you could totally make fake wounds. They can use makeup and pretend to draw injuries on themselves and pretend to treat them. That is totally cool and fun. And actually, I'm making Dee Dee laugh. I'm watching her laugh on the screen. But actually, that's what first responders do. It's the official term is it's called moulage. And when they participate and they hold things like what are called mass casualty drills, where they practice treating large numbers of injured people, they do that. They use makeup. They call it, it's got a fancy name, and they paint injuries on people for the first responders to practice treating. Not something you might see happening in the middle of a pandemic, but post-pandemic, if you hear of your local fire department or participating in a mass casualty drill, they're always looking for volunteers. And you could say that's a great learning curve for them. I used to be on the fire department, and it was amazing the number of volunteers that would show up for us to practice treating them. And it was great to have all that volunteer help. And I think it's a good learning experience. So I keep peeking over in the chat to see if there's any other questions. Any other questions from anyone? I know I could just like talk for an hour, can't I? Okay, I don't see any other questions. Oh yeah, Dee Dee has participated with her Girl Scout years ago in a mass casualty drill. It's a great way to learn. You know, sometimes they're looking for younger girls to do something, but typically it's more like the older kids, just because there's the liability issue with little kids, because they will probably in a drill be separated from their parents. So typically it's the older kids. And I'm looking, and I have all of the first aid booklets except for I don't have the ambassador one, but I think, oh yes, senior first aid. They get to find out how to perform triage. And triage is something that is critical in a mass casualty incident because they have primary and secondary triage that goes through and does that. Each age level, by the way, if you have your girl guide, I do have them, but I don't have them on the table in front of me. There's also a safety award. It's a pin. It's a little pin. There's one for date. There's one for all of the different levels. And there's different activities that they can do to do those. I think I have a handout posted on my website. I do actually. I have the Daisy one, how to do it, and the Brownie one is posted on there as well. I don't have a handout for the other ones. Only because I've done these at the Girl Expo, and those were the two that were the easiest to do at a booth, which is why I only have those two in there. But that's kind of fun. For your daisies, they get to learn how to relieve choking. They get to practice stop, drop, and roll. And they have to tell their trusted grown-up their name, address, and phone number. So they know how to tell somebody over on 911 where they are. That might be it. I'm trying to remember if there's a fourth step. I don't have the handout in front of me. But those are also some fun ones to do. And those are pins, and those go on the front of their vest or their sash. I think it's placed below the numerals. I'm trying to remember the exact placement. Mm-hmm. So other than that, if there's no other questions, I think I am done. This will be posted live. Be posted shortly. It might not be today, but in a couple of days, it'll probably be posted. But otherwise, I'm going to say I'm sorry that we're not all really meeting like outdoors, enjoying Camp Farnsworth, which is my virtual background. I took this from Farnsworth Weekend last year. But hopefully next year, we will all be meeting at Farnsworth Weekend to do this. I'm the crazy lady with the health and safety related swaps, in case you're wondering. Last year, it was keychain barrier sheets. I don't know what it will be next year. It'll be something fun.
Okay. Thank you so much, Gail. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Hope you learned something new. I did. All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
All right, everybody have an awesome weekend. Take care.